My name is Drake Sutton-Shearer. I'm the CEO and founder of PRØHBTD. We have offices in Los Angeles, New York, Toronto, and Vancouver. Spent most of my professional life in Los Angeles and New York, working with companies such as these to help build brands with customer acquisition, help them with marketing strategy, all kinds of things. You may recognize some of them. At PRØHBTD, we create, we build, and we market cannabis brands to global audiences. We have a global audience. We own and operate that audience, and we also build brands for third parties to help connect with that audience. It is our mission as a company to lead cannabis from the black market to the supermarket. This is the very thing that we talk about in our company, and that's what we're here to do today and in the future. We're known in the industry as leaders in what we do. We're very fortunate to have a phenomenal team within the company that helps us execute and help our brand partners be successful. We're partners with Entrepreneur Magazine and Advertising Week and numerous other mainstream companies. We work with more than 60 cannabis brands on one side of our business, which is a creative agency. Here's a few of them here. We recently launched ProWorks at Advertising Week in New York. I think it was last week or week before. I can't remember these days, but it is a consulting business group that really is the best of CPG and the best of cannabis. It's run by Craig Binkley, the president, who is a former senior Coca-Cola executive and also from the agency business. And it's about really helping Procter & Gamble and Mondelez and Johnson & Johnson and these other companies and these beverage companies understand who the cannabis consumer is and how to build products for them. So it's enough about us. Let's talk about brands. Who here is building a brand in cannabis? All right. Who here has a brand in cannabis today and is just looking to scale their business? All right, cool. Now, not since the Industrial Revolution or the tech boom has there been such a phenomenal opportunity as cannabis. The difference here is that in cannabis, we're not creating a new market like we did here. Right? Cannabis, some thinks a $500 billion opportunity. In the US, it's $100 billion over the next 10 to 15 years, many believe. There's so much information out there, we're not really quite sure how big it is, but it is absolutely, undeniably enormous. When Bayer introduced aspirin in 1899, cannabis was the #1 painkiller in the USA, and then Prohibition happened. We know what happened there. And as we can see now with the incredible progress in the USA and worldwide, there's now 31 countries globally that have a marijuana program. It's an incredible product, right? It's really about an ingredient. This is not about smoke and flour or oil. It's certainly part of it, right? But cannabis is an ingredient. It works incredibly well with delivery systems and health and wellness supplements and cosmeceuticals, functional food and beverages. Whether you're Coca-Cola or whether you're Diageo, you're looking to find a way and a path to the consumer that can perhaps help continue to build and expand your business. Of course, animal health. We see pet care and animal health as a massive opportunity in the future as well. Anybody here doing pet care, CBD treats, or anything like that? All right. Emerging mainstream disruption. I mean, look, big pharma, big alcohol, functional food, beverages, tobacco. There's a lot of big players coming into the space, and they're going to be looking for companies to acquire in the future to help add to their portfolios. And they're going to build new companies, new brands, and they may, just may, add cannabis as an ingredient into existing brands that have already got built-in trust with consumers. You know, there's 250 million people that now live in a post-prohibition economy between Canada and the USA. There's more than 75,000 cannabis companies in the USA and Canada. So that's a lot of companies that will fail over the next few years, and very few will succeed. Perhaps you'll be one that succeeds. I hope that you are. Because there'll be a lot of distressed assets for companies to pick up. It's a very challenging marketplace to make it in. But there's really like no established CPG brands yet. For those who don't know, CPG stands for consumer packaged goods. There's a lot of localized brands. There's a lot of love for brands that are, you know, very local, city, state, sometimes the state. But brands need essence. They need heart and soul. They need loyalty. They need consumer preference. Right? Very few people are walking into dispensaries and saying, I want this brand, right? Most are just looking for value. Credibility. Brands need features that have consistent experiences. It's very hard to build a cannabis brand that has a consistent outcome from a market-by-market basis. This is really the cannabis industry today, right? It's like I'll have the green one because it's $25, or I'll have the yellow one, it's $32. It's less about brand differentiation and brand value and more about consumer value. This is the cannabis industry of the future, where when you walk into that bar and you know what you're going to drink, whether it's a Jack and Coke or whatever it is, that's going to happen with cannabis, just not happening today. These companies own, well, on the left here, on the CPG side, these 10 companies own about 90% of what is in our homes today. It's scary, and it's pretty interesting that they've managed to gobble up and acquire so much market share. And then you've got the alcohol beverage companies on the right-hand side who are making all the headlines with their investments in canopy growth and things like that. But all of these companies are interested in cannabis as a functional ingredient. They're all very, very interested in the consumer, and most of all, they're interested in improving their stock price and expanding their businesses. So it's going to be a war of brands in the cannabis space. That's what's going to be happening. And people will choose to build one brand, or they'll choose to build numerous brands, or they'll choose to build a portfolio of brands. And people like these companies will come along and acquire those. So if you're building a brand in cannabis, think about your exit opportunity, right? If you're building say a caregiver brand, maybe Johnson & Johnson's a good acquirer, right? So imagine that your investor is the CEO of one of those companies, and kind of build your brand toward that opportunity, because you sure as hell don't want to compete with them 3 or 4 or 5 years from now. So if a war of brands is coming, how do we prepare, right? So what are the 5 stages of the brand development journey? It starts with understanding, right? So this really produces the brand foundation, the psychographic discovery, like who is the customer? What do they do? What do they eat? What do they drive? What do they listen to? Where do they live? Once you understand who these customers are, you can kind of figure out what kind of cannabis products they might be already using, and then figure out a way to insert your product into their lifestyle that they will adopt and adapt and hopefully use time after time. Number 2 is clarification, right? This produces the brand personality and the brand story, the values, the attributes, the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, the threats, category naming. Number 3 is positioning, right? This is all about the unique selling proposition. What is the essence of this brand? It's really not about what does it mean to you. It's like, what does your brand mean to your target audience? So in order to do that, you need to know who your target audience is, right? First thing. And then, of course, why is the brand so important? That's the effect that your brand has on people. The 4th is your identity. This is all the stuff that people come to Prohibited and say, hey man, I want a brand, but what they really want is a fucking logo in 30 days for $1. Now, people who understand how to build brands know that it's an investment in time, it's an investment in money, and it's an investment in your team and yourself to build something that really matters, out there in the world. So the identity part is the collateral part. This produces the identity system and all the creative assets that go with the first 3. And then it's the application, right? Kind of letting it go out into the world and seeing how the world's going to react to it, how the world's going to feel about your brand. That's the customer experience, that's the manifesto, that's the digital assets, all of these things. So those are kind of very high level, the 5 stages of the brand development journey. Brand archetypes. Anybody here know what brand archetypes are? Nice. Brand archetypes, there are 12 brand archetypes that a lot of people, when you're building brands, you kind of refer to. The innocent, the regular guy or girl, the hero, the sage, the caregiver, etc. So we're going to go through a couple of these. So the first one is the innocent. This is the Dove, Ben & Jerry's. It offers a simple solution to a problem. I need sugar, I want Ben & Jerry's. It's associated with goodness and morality and simplicity, nostalgia or childhood. Ice cream childhood, Dove wraps you in their goodness and you want to take it home and it makes you feel warm and fuzzy and good. And it's companies that have straightforward values. Ben & Jerry's were sold. We'll see if they still have those values intact. The second one is an outlaw brand, say Virgin or Harley Davidson. This really appeals to customers or employees who feel disenfranchised from society, that it's about helping retain values when they're threatened by the emerging ones. It's about paving the way for revolutionary ways of thinking. These are about insurgent people, insurgent organization building outlaw brands. Caregiver brands, the Johnson & Johnsons, the Tom Shoes. You know, Tom Shoes was the first company to say, hey, you know, we're going to build the shoe company, ton of competition, and we're going to drop a whole bunch of shoes in the middle of Africa for people that need them. Every time you buy a pair of shoes, we're going to give one away to children in Africa. And that started what's called the conscious commerce movement. Tom's pioneered that. And they're a caregiver brand for that reason, because it makes you feel like they care about the world that you live in. So brand hierarchy models. A lot of people in the cannabis industry say, man, I'm building a house of brands. I'm building this portfolio. That's awesome. But you know what that means. So the corporate brand, the flagship brand, the products and service brands underneath it. A branded house is a single flagship brand, and then underneath that is the same brand that you use for your product or your service, right? It's about leveraging the maximum investment into your flagship brand. The second is a hybrid, we'll call a hybrid house of brands. That's when your flagship master brand also exists within your products or services brand family. It's about leveraging that flagship brand, right, and strategic investments in a house of brands. The third is the actual house of brands, Procter & Gamble, right? It's about opportunistic investments, strategically positioning, the Gillettes, the Cascades, the Tides, the Pampers. That's an actual house of brands. There is a difference. So a lot of people come to Prohibited, and I know other companies that do design work, and say, you know, again, I just want a logo, but design is much more than a logo. A logo is just part of a broader system. And design is really kind of, well, what does the brand look like? How does the brand sound? You know, how does that brand feel? How does it make you feel? How does that brand move when it's in the market? These are all things that a lot of people don't think about. They're just looking at packaging or logos. Most people in cannabis, again, want the best. I am the best grower. I have the best oil. I have the best flower. We are the best. Anybody heard this yet? All right, you all know. We've all said it at some time. What consumers really want is value. They want the value-benefit equation, features, service, plus price equals what's called a value-benefit equation. Today's brands really, you know, they've got to have the value-benefit, and they've got to be useful, relevant, and entertaining. You've probably noticed, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, digital, out-of-home, billboards, television. There's a lot of commercials and advertising these days that are around humor, because it's a really divisive society at the moment, and humor helps to bring people together, and it helps to connect people to brands. So how do you create value through customer experience? Red Bull have done an amazing job over the years, where their brand has become the customer experience, and the customer experience has become the brand. You know, they started out as a company selling sugar water that decided to build a studio and shoot some action sports people and give them wings, to now being a full-fledged media company that also happens to sell sugar water. You know, it's a really interesting flip that when they jiu-jitsu'd their business. And when you talk about experience through design, there's a lot of like good design where you know what it says. Oh, hey, you know, it's this package of X and this is what it says. I'm going to remember that probably. But when it's really great design, and a great experience, it's really unforgettable and it's meaningful to your life. You know, how many times do you pick something up or buy something and it stays in your world? You take it home with you, you unpack it, you look at it, you want it to stay in your world. It's meaningful to you. That's because the design experience around that product matters to you. So we're going to talk about valuable experience systems. We're going to go with Nike, Apple, and Netflix. So a brand experience system meaning is all about, first of all, the branding pyramid headline. So something bigger, the emotional benefits, the product benefits, and the product attributes. So the first one's Nike. Their branding pyramid headline is just do it. We all know what that means. We all know what it is. They've been saying it for years. There's something bigger is to reach your full human potential. Their emotional benefits are to be mentally and physically empowered, and their product benefits are to look great, perform, and get fit, or try to. And the product attributes, it's fashionable, it's lightweight, it's durable athletic wear. That's what Nike's pyramid is. And keep in mind, guys, this is simple. This is super high level here. So Apple, they don't have a tagline. They don't need one anymore. They're unbelievably ubiquitous. They could put anything out with their icon and you would probably buy it. And they could probably charge 1,000 times what they make it for. But there's something bigger, is to have a revolutionary innovation. Their emotional benefits are they're about freedom. We want to free you from the things that you do with our devices and with our services to make your life better. The product benefits are the ease of use, creativity, productivity. That's what their products do. And the attributes are it's a mobile digital product and service, because it's pretty simple. That's what Apple does. They give you products and services, and it's mobile. Netflix is movie enjoyment made easy. I don't know how long it took them to think of that, but it's true. It's the easiest way to watch movies. There's something bigger, to escape from reality, to be satisfied and delighted with the emotional benefits. It's got convenience, selection, and value as their product benefits, and their attributes are pretty simple. It says what it is. They stream TV shows, movies, and original content. So if you're building a brand, I would ask you to do this exercise. It's really helpful, and it's actually harder than you think. It looks easy, but ask yourself, what's your pyramid headline, what's your something bigger, and so on and so forth. These companies failed. They are the Cannabis 1.0. They failed the war of brands. They failed in every single way possible. This is about ripping off IP, ripping off brand equity that already exists in the marketplace that everybody knows. It's called, hey, what's the fastest path to market illegally to make as much money as possible before someone shuts us down? These are all shut down. Version 1.0. Let's talk about activity groups versus strains. Candescent do a good job at this. They were one of the first companies to come out and focus on outcomes versus strain-specific products. At Prohibited, we believe in that philosophy as well, that people aren't going to be going to supermarkets and saying, I'm looking for X strain. They're going to say, I've got a headache, I want to come down, or I feel good, or I feel bad, or whatever it is they're looking, whatever the outcome is, they're going to be looking for that, right? Just like you go and ask for sweet corn versus Kernel 405 from Whole Foods. This is the cannabis today, right? It's it's incredible to see this kind of CPG packaging and experience at retail. Unfortunately, this is not the bulk of the market. These are exceptions, but it will become the market. You could see this at Whole Foods or any progressive, modern place where you can buy products or services. Canada, anybody with brands in Canada? Nice. What kind of brand you got? Topicals. CBD. Got it. And you're going through packaging hell? It is hell. So packaging materials are going to play a lesser role in brand building. I mean, this is a company called A Lot, as you can see on the right-hand side. That is the amount of real estate that they're allowed to work with to help extend their brand into the Canadian marketplace. It's pretty hard to build connective tissue with audiences if you can't really give them the very thing that makes you a brand. So it's about adjacent category brand building, right? It's about hardware and accessories, merchandise, experiential, more about education. You can educate people and endear them to the reason why you exist, and then hope that they walk into a store thinking of your company and then they go to the store and buy it. But it helps if you have content. Content's critical. Consumers today demand content before they buy anything. They don't request it or ask for it. They just demand that it's always there. We're very fortunate. But Canada has incredible skilled labor. They have millions of square feet of R&D facilities and canopies and grows. And it's about shooting that content. It's about showing people that there's corporate social responsibility programs to endear themselves to consumers, to walk into the retailer and say, I want to buy Tweed, or I want to buy Apothecana. Great brand. You got to use content for a lifestyle. We have, I think, 19 shows total that we are working on. This is Josh, our Chief Content Officer, my co-founder. How many do we have? A little more than 19. You got to keep creating shows. You got to keep figuring out how to connect with audiences. You don't have to spend a year figuring out the best show. Let's just spin something up, see what works, and then scale it and add more resources to it. So we have a show like Pot Pie, and we have a show like Edibles with Birdie, who's Woody Harrelson's niece. These do very, very well for us. And we bring brands into the conversation and integrate them and then introduce them to a wider audience. Everybody here has probably heard of MedMen. They spend a lot of money on advertising. I have to say, hats off. They've spent more paid media than any other company to make sure that everybody knows that they matter for some reason or another. And so they put up billboards. These are aspirational billboards. There's no weed here. There's no green or can of something, but you've got it at the end, and it works, and your product is very sexy. So reputation risk. A lot of cannabis companies do a lot of really weird things. It's like you build these brands, and then you sell the products, and then you do strange PR stunts or strange experiences, and you risk the very thing that you're building. And when, reputation risk really happens when you do things that contradict your values. Like United Airlines last year, when they beat the hell out of this poor guy and dragged him off the plane, and this is what CNN was saying about United when they weren't in the room. Because as most of you know, it's really all about what people say about you when you're not around. Starbucks coffee. Two African-American gentlemen walk into a Starbucks and sit down to have a coffee and conversation and talk a little business. They get arrested. Unbelievable. And so Howard Schultz, recently resigned from the chairman of Starbucks, and I'm sure this had a lot to do with it. He has better values than that. Starbucks, it will take them a long time to recover from this. Just because you write a check to a company or a person or a city doesn't mean that you fix the reason why it happened in the first place. So make sure that you manage that. So kind of in closing, and then we'll have some questions if you're open to it. A lot of folks in cannabis try to force into the market what the market does not want. Oh my God, everybody wants this, so I'm going to make that. But how do you validate that, right? Like validate the market opportunity, build for it, execute. Define your exit and take your time. Figure out who you're going to sell this company to. Or do you want a lifestyle business and you're happy to kind of putter along? Know what your brand archetype is. A lot of people don't know what that is. Are you a caregiver brand? Are you an outlaw brand? Are you a sage because you're a wise kind of a brand? Build a value experience system, right? Try to endear people to your brand and allow them to experience your product or your service in a way that can keep them coming back for more. Understand your brand imagery, and then deliver what the consumer wants at a price they want and better than the competition. You cannot only compete on price. If you do that, it's a race to the bottom. You'll lose your margin, you'll go out of business, and someone will pick up your assets and say, thanks for coming, right? But really understand what they want. Figure out your price. Just because you can sell it for what you think they'll buy it for doesn't mean you should. Really think about that. And then manage your reputation. That's the risk side. So that's what I got for you guys. If you'd like to answer some questions, I'm happy to take them. Thanks for listening. No questions? That was easy. Hey, buddy. We're an outlaw brand. Yeah. That's it? Yep.
So in part of this, you're building a brand, you're investing, you're having to archetype all these things. Where does the company investment go in changing the conversation or the education that prohibited as an education concept? Is the thing where you still can't have a bank account, you still can't have a fair tax rate, and politicians think that hemp and cannabis is the same thing.
They do. Okay, a lot of questions. But thanks for asking. James Sladek, OG. Yeah, I think, one of the easiest ways to build a brand with consumers these days is not do cannabis and do hemp. because you can build it, you can sell it everywhere, and you can find out if anyone actually really cares about it. And if they do, then you can add hemp plus, meaning hemp plus CBD, and then when it's ready, you can be a THC-driven product as well and expand your SKU base. That's one of the easiest things to do, hard to execute, but when you just do a cannabis-infused product, there's so many regulations, as most of you know, it can be incredibly challenging and expensive, and you're relying on suppliers who sometimes don't show up. You're relying on people that tell you things that aren't true, more often than not, and hemp is freely available and you can sell it everywhere. So I would recommend doing that first. Hey.
So we've been in business since 2012. And
Congrats, you're still here.
yeah, we're still here, but it's tough.
Yeah.
Headed back out of the THC side.
Oh.
And, folks that you saw my pea butter lid, we had a product that sold 20,000 units last year, but it just never seems to be enough money to really put together a good marketing plan.
The question is that you're selling things and you don't make enough money to reinvest into marketing to expand your business to build something that scales. Well, it depends on a number of things, right? The product and consumers endear to your product. Do you have wide distribution? Or are you localized? Are you local only?
No, we're nation. We've been nationwide since 2015, 2014.
And what is the volume of your sales? So 2012 to now, $500,000?
Pretty much. I mean, we started at 100 cents, 200 cents.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that if you're stuck with scale, then maybe you're limiting your market, or you need strategic partnerships to expand, whether it's retail or direct to consumer. Is it a hemp product, a CBD product, or?
We do several things. We do the hemp tinctures.
Yeah.
We do the tool for the industry. We launched our hemp beer. And just went out of money to get the hemp beer.
Hemp beer is expensive. Anybody here in the beverage business? Yeah, that's expensive. Yeah. So did you take your money and invest into the beverage side of your business?
Yep, put all my money into it.
Yep.
Actually, a brewer went out of business.
Yeah.
It took me right down back.
Right, so you're building a brand, but you're contract manufacturing, you're bottling. Yeah, we can talk afterwards, and sure. There's no real silver bullet for that. I mean, that's a deep dive into your business to understand where you might have more efficiencies to build scale. Yep.
I didn't expect it.
Yeah, no. Anybody else? This is really easy. And now there's more time to go out there and have another 420. So thank you very much. I appreciate the effort.